Hello, gorgeous Solène.
Hi, Christy.
So lovely to be with you.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, so lovely to be with you as well.
So tell us where you're calling in from today.
I'm calling in from Dubai in the UAE.
Wonderful. And I'm here in France. I want to hug you one day. I think I need to fly to Dubai.
That would be
Uh,
amazing.
I know. I always sense such a connection with you. And we're going into a topic today on mental health and coaching that I know is really dear to both of our hearts. So, how did you get so interested in mental health?
Such a big question to start with. So yeah, I've been reflecting on this and I've come to realize that for as long as I can remember, I've been, observing humans and often felt puzzled. How how do we work? How does that make sense? Um, and also at the same time, very early on, I felt inside of me like I was fundamentally different to everyone around me.
Yeah.
And so that's led me down a lot of different rabbit holes over the course of my existence so far. And it's pointed me multiple times in the direction of the broad topic of mental health. And it really kind of hit me. I would definitely use that word deliberately during COVID or when COVID hit, and then I was hit, double hit. But yeah, it was really that thing around like not being able to travel. I was working in the travel industry, so my job lost a lot of meaning and purpose around that time, and also my go-to answer to everything was just book a plane ticket. You don't feel very well for whatever reason, just book a plane ticket. You feel amazing and excited, just book a plane ticket. And so at that time, like, oh, I have to sit with myself. Okay, this is different. This is interesting. And so I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to follow another one of my interests, which was psychology. So I did a postgraduate certification in psychology, for the first year of COVID. And then around that time, coincidence, message of the universe, it's up to everyone's interpretation. My own mental health went down very low into what I call rock bottom's basement. And that's when I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, BPD. And then a year later, I then found out that I also have ADHD. So yeah, it was like the beginning of that kind of personal journey as well. So as many things, it's kind of like a keen interest in that broad topic, and then the crossover with my own lived experience that, you know, have come to what I'm passionate about today and all the advocacy work that I do, I guess. So yeah, I'd love to return the question. What about you?
Oh, well, that's such a beautiful, beautiful story. And it's so, well, I sensed a lot of similarities with your story because I also grew up feeling really different from other people and was badly ostracized in middle school, was sick like an entire year and then skipped a grade. So I've always been 2 years younger than anybody around me, any of my peers. Went off to college, university at age 16. And I always felt exceptionally smart in some ways and exceptionally dumb in other ways. And in that social space, there was a lot of imitation, just looking around, how are other people doing this, studying it and doing the right things, but it's exhausting. And I went through 4 severe clinical depressions in my 20s and 30s, um, which coincided to some extent with hormonal shifts after a miscarriage and when my kids were little and things like that. Um, and so I used to get diagnosed with everything under the sun. And it was like depression, generalized anxiety disorder, OCD, you name it, I was labeled with it. And it wasn't till later that I found out that I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I only found that out just before COVID. And it has to do with hypermobility, collagen production, and there's also differences in how my body processes cortisol and adrenaline and the sex hormones and all of that. And so I just feel like there's been a lot of labeling that was not necessarily helpful for me. And it was a lot more interesting to learn about my body and how my body responds when I have enough magnesium, sleep, protein, what happens, like what are these heart palpitations and which hormones help to stay calm. So it's been a very long time that I've been interested for a lot of reasons. And a big part of it is just learning to love and accept and tolerate my own experiences and be extra, extra kind to myself, which I think after a lifetime of trying to please everyone else is a beautiful, beautiful shift. So I don't know if something else came up for you that you wanted to say.
This really resonates with what you've been sharing. I think a couple of things in particular. One, the early experiences of being ostracized. I think you used that specific word. So yeah, same, like same, similar. It's never gonna be
Mm.
exactly the same. But similar, experiences of bullying, and being excluded, in early childhood. So for me, that's really, informed that feeling of being different, of not fitting in. And then the whole masking experience of like 20 years of, yeah, studying human behavior in a way that, okay, maybe I can learn to be like whatever people like or want. And so adapting to all the different people and the exhaustion and the mental strain that that creates. So yeah, that really, really, really resonated. And then the other aspect, which was around the body, and of course, the beautiful book of The Body Keeps the Score. It made me think about that and how we often talk about the mind-body connection, but actually, for me, I've completely reframed that. It's like it's
Yep.
one collectively together, and it's not a coincidence that when I started dialectic behavioral therapy for my borderline personality disorder, at the same time I started a physical exercise program. And at the time, it seemed to me like it just kind of happened like that. And I didn't think anything of it. And interestingly, which now with hindsight, I'm like, this makes total sense. But at the time, it was a surprise to me. I, as much like, the more I got stronger, the stronger I got. This is the way to say it in proper English. The stronger I got physically, the stronger I felt mentally, and vice versa. And it was completely connected. And that was like, oh, okay, okay.
So connected. Oh my gosh. I remember I went to a podiatrist because I was having a lot of pain in my feet and knees and hips and everything. And she was gonna give me some little insoles to put in my shoes or something. And she had me stand on these electrode pads, and she was like, are you like anxious and crying all the time because your feet are not sending you the signals they're supposed to be sending you? And I was like, let me just start crying right now, in case you were wondering. And then I ended up going for a year-long program in gait management. And so I actually learned how to put my feet on the floor and how to walk. And it was amazing what that did for my anxiety. Like, huh, if you can actually feel your weight going down into the correct spot on your heels, and you can feel your toes moving, there's a whole lot of current that goes up and down through the body, from the feet through the heart to the head. I mean, it is one thing. It's not like you have some kind of brain that's bifurcated from the rest of you. It's like you can come at your mental health. I mean, we're saying the words mental health, but you can come at your health as a human from nutrition and exercise and sleep and gorgeous love relationships with a good partner and some friends and all the things. Coaching, so helpful. What do you want to say about the connection with coaching for you?
I thought to myself, what a beautiful segue into coaching. I
Uh,
love that. Um, yeah, coaching has been instrumental for me in the self-discovery journey that led to the diagnosis that I've spoken about before, which were a very important piece of the puzzle, particularly at the time. So it's been interesting to look back on that. So I first came across coaching in 2019, which, compared to your experience is like a toddler. But for me, it feels like quite a long time ago already. Um, and at the time, I was an area manager. So I was working in the travel industry, like I said, and I had a team of people, and I just wanted to become a better leader. And luckily, inside the big organization that I was part of, they decided to train all the leaders in coaching. And it was very grow model type of coaching related to performance and progression. So it's completely different to the holistic coaching and approach that we learn about at Awaken. And still, I found it so insightful. It's like, oh, hang on, people have the answers. They don't need me to be this like manager who knows it all and da da da. Actually, it's way more powerful when they figure it out. And oftentimes they actually know, they just need the space to kind of bounce like, okay, is it A, is it B, is there a C, is there a D, and kind of work through that together. So I completely fell in love with it. And around the same time, I was really struggling as a leader with a couple of people that in my team that I was like, I don't think I'm, doing a good job at like helping them through some of the challenges that they're facing and at just inspiring them, to also grow and feel nurtured and all these different things. So I decided, well, I'm gonna find a coach. And so I was coached around, improving my leadership skills. That's how I came into it. And my coach, she's amazing, Séverine, if you're listening. Thank you so much. She went so much deeper than that, so much deeper. And it was truly like a transformative experience. And like I said, the beginning of this like self-discovery, self-exploration. And it took me so far that then I started to feel like I was touching a very dark part of myself, and particularly in relation to my mental health. And then I sought therapy um, from there to kind of dig deeper into the past and all of these things. So, yeah, it's very interesting to have been through that journey because now I feel like I can really articulate it in a way that at least makes sense for me, and I'm hoping will make sense to other people as well. Um, and you think like, wow, this was 2019, and then it took me like 5 years before I decided to, or I decided before my brain probably and my body and my whole being puts two and two together and thought, hang on. So I love coaching as a leader. I really enjoyed being coached. I really benefited from it as an individual and as a leader. What about if I pursued coaching myself? Wouldn't that make some sense? And it's hilarious to tell, a lot of people who have known me for this time because when I do, they're like, finally,
A match made in heaven. It was meant to be. Like you
it
finally
took you
found each
that
other.
long. Yeah. So yeah, and then obviously this year well, no, last year I graduated from the Awaken course, and now this year pursuing the accreditation. So working towards the ACC at the moment, getting the hours in and loving every hour of it, honestly.
I know it's so luscious, that experience of being with someone and just, to me it's more relaxing than yoga. It's such a state of just presence and love and juiciness and wonder as the other person just unfolds and develops. And it's not on you. You don't have to fix anyone or change anyone. You just see them and love them and watch them just expand and step into their power. It's like, wow, this is fun. And I love receiving income. That's fun too. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my
still
gosh.
working on that, but
Yeah, yeah.
we'll
I
get
mean, the
there. We'll get
the
there.
early years for sure. Yeah. And when I started, it was really similar to you, actually. I had experience coaching and it was dramatic. I made some huge changes in my life. That was back in 2005 when I had my first coach. And I had seen a lot of counselors. And I think the interplay between counseling and coaching is really interesting and useful because they each have their own space and there's certainly plenty of overlap, but there's a time for therapy and a time for coaching, and sometimes they're at the same time, and they're both so beautiful. But I had done a lot of therapy in my life, and it never touched anything as deep as coaching did. A lot of people think of coaching as like therapy light or doing therapy without a license or quackery or something else. But for me, it was always wow, it touched that source, the true self inside of me. It's touched that source of strength in me that was so powerful for growth and healing that all the diagnoses and going into the darkness, which has its place, and I would highly recommend, especially EMDR, internal family systems. I think there are some therapies that are dramatically better than other ones. But coaching really changed my life. And so when I first studied coaching back in 2009, so just 10 years before you, um, it was such, I can't even tell you how it felt like my entire world went upside down because I was in such a codependent, people pleasing, high demand religious background where you need a savior outside to rescue you because you're a horrible sinner and you're defective in every way. And just a lot of beliefs that were not serving me or the world. And then to come into coaching and be seen as you're lovable, you're okay, you're I see your greatness and what's wanting to happen and emerge in you. And even though in 2009 I had still only studied, I mean, it was deeper than the grow model. It was a full 130-hour course that took me a year and a half. But it was still pretty transactional. It stayed at behaviors, goals, actions, went into beliefs a little bit. It didn't go so deep into just the beauty of spirituality and who we are as part of love and co-creating with love. Um, but that came over time, just in my own progression, and it's something I'm so happy to be part of in Awaken. I'd love to hear what the experience was for you or how it is. You're still part of the Awaken community. I think once you're in, you always have those relationships. What's that been like?
Yes, I would love to share. A couple of things that from what you said that I wanted to react to because I think they're really,
Mm,
really powerful. One is the importance of finding a modality, a person, and then looking at the timing that works for you. And what I mean by that is like there are so many modalities, like you talked about EMDR, you talked obviously about
yeah,
coaching, about internal family systems. Before I talked about dialectic behavior therapy,
yeah.
which really personally
DBT,
like
so good.
DBT, which changed my life, to put it simply. So I think, yeah, exploring different modalities and seeing what resonates, with you and where you're at and who you are and what you're looking for. The person, like the relationship with the individual that is working with you is so important. And there's actually been research that shows, like, in terms of therapy, the most important and impactful is the trust and relationship with the therapist over any
Say it
actually of the
louder.
different modalities. It's the
Yes.
relationship.
Your trust and safety with your coach or your counselor
Yes,
is that is
exactly.
the, like, they can have skills or no skills. Skills are helpful, but that relationship of
Yeah,
trust,
skills and ethics are essential, but like, yeah, the
sure.
trust. And I think I really want to say, like, I'm glad you said say it louder, because I really want to like emphasize this point. Like, if it doesn't feel right, browse, you know, Tinder it. I don't know. This is just a
Yeah.
jokey way of saying it, but like, I made the mistake personally early on when I was looking for help of thinking like, you know, just the first therapist, you know, it's all the same. It's a therapist, just, and it was my first time. It was a psychoanalysis type of therapy. So you just share your past and you have a good, well, I used to say I have a good cry for an hour a week. It didn't fundamentally change anything for me. It's not to say that it's not going to work for someone else. And that's the point, right? Find your modality, find your person and the trust, like make sure the trust and safety is there. And then the timing, like we change all the time as
Yes.
individuals. And so someone that might have walked part of the path with you, like a coach, like for example, the coach that I worked with that I talked about before, we're friends now. So it wouldn't work if she were to coach me now, and that's absolutely beautiful, you know. And then you find the next person that is going to walk a part of your path with you, and maybe you're going to walk a part of the path of someone else, and all of that. And I think the timing also is really important to look at and revisit from, you know, every so often, like, is this still working for me? Like, is this still what I need at this moment in my life? So yeah, that was the first thing: modality, person, timing. And the other thing that really brought something up for me was when you mentioned about acceptance and being accepted for who you are. I think that's so beautiful. I definitely learned this from DBT. Actually, there's a whole part called radical acceptance, which comes from mindfulness and ancient philosophies and is so wonderful. I did struggle with it for some time because I was like, okay, well then great, like just accept everything. And what helps me is to think about this kind of beautiful tension. It's a beautiful tension between acceptance and agency. And like on the one hand, like it's dialectics, right? It's holding two things that are
Yes.
seemingly contradictory, but actually can go hand in hand together. On the one hand, I can accept where I am today. I can accept that this is the reality, the facts. And at the same time, I can have this agency to create whatever is next, whatever is new, to change certain things in my life, in my behaviors, etc. And that really helps me to constantly
Yes.
like explore those two things. And really, I find that the growth for me is at the juncture between the two.
I totally agree. In our MCC level course, we have a class on polarities, and it's so similar. I think dialectics and polarities, they're just two ways of saying the same word. And when we teach polarities, we teach it in the shape of a bow. So it has these two loops of goodness at the top and these two little trails going down below. And so when you're in the duality, the beauty of it, you were talking about agency and acceptance, and you want the best of both without, maybe with agency it might be over striving or stressing, and maybe the downside of acceptance might be apathy and going into a dorsal collapse state or something. And so you want to just only ever dip your little toes down into the hurt or the fear related to the goodness, and then stay in the both and of agency and radical acceptance at the same time. And you can find polarities in almost everything in life: togetherness and apartness, or you pick any spectrum, and going with the both is going to be a beautiful, beautiful way to live. Mm.
In improv, we talk about yes and is one of the core principles. So it makes me connect that as well, like yes and togetherness, yes and sometime benefiting from being alone. Yeah, it's so powerful, especially in, I know we don't want to get into, well, I don't particularly want to get into politics and world and all that.
We'll leave
But
them to.
when you look at the polarization of, a lot of topics, I think to bring that beautiful bow image is very important, is very helpful and very tangible. To think of all of these things. Oh, I can think this extreme or that extreme. Actually, what's the end? What's the middle of the bow that connects the two?
Yes, yes, I love that. And it can be any topic, yeah. I mean, you talk about any of the biggest topics, immigration or abortion laws or any of those things. Like, how do you value and love human beings and have choice? And how do you value people coming into your country from other lands and value your national identity and values? I mean, there's just you always want you just always do better with the both and yeah. Where do you want to go next in the conversation?
Well, I realized that I haven't answered your question about Awaken, so we can go into that if you'd like.
Yeah. Well, what's it like for
Um,
you in the community and related to mental health?
yeah, it's been a beautiful experience. Yeah, I've gained obviously a lot of tangible, practical skills. I've increased my confidence. I remember at the beginning when we get those little surveys that say like, how confident do you feel to coach? Like before each practice session as part of the course. And I used to put like the lowest score because I was like, I don't know. And I've actually learned, and I keep reminding myself of this, that is what you said before. It's trust the process. It's not about you. And so if I trust the process, then I can be confident to coach, whether I'm personally feeling like my best day ever or my worst day ever, I'm honoring the process, I'm honoring the person. And therefore, that's allowed me to really let go of that idea of like, I need to feel this super confidence, like I'm super coach or something like this, which was unrealistic, also, I think, in many ways. So that's
Although I
what,
have to say, if I can jump
yes.
in, I really wondered, why are you taking this course? When you first, I was like, you could teach the course. You're so wise and you're so loving and like you already live the stuff in your own life. So like, why do you even need it? So it really is gratifying to find that you enjoyed it and felt like you learned a lot of skills and things because you're just someone I admire very much, and I'm so grateful that you're in the community and doing your BPD bunch work, which is so gorgeous. Uh, like what shifts or what impact do you feel is really beautiful and special for you in your life these days?
Oh, thank you so much. Honestly, I'm like blushing because that means the world. It means the world. And I would love to teach one day because everything I've learned through the course and through this commitment to coaching has benefited me so much that I feel like sharing it would be such a beautiful thing eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Um, oh, and one thing I wanted to say about the course is particularly how inclusive that it was, and that it is, how welcoming in terms of like the materials, the tools, the facilitators. I felt like it was completely welcome and accepted to have a different way of thinking, feeling, behaving. And that is very different to some of the other courses. I'm not going to name any names, but I'm currently doing another course specifically around career coaching, which is equally like the content is very interesting. The approach is just totally different. And as someone who is neurodivergent and who has discovered that later in life and seen like how that's always influenced the way that I learn and the way that I show up and all these different things, to be in a space where, that is actually anticipated. That's what the course is designed to do is to cater for all different types of people and brains. Wow, how refreshing. I didn't feel any need to ask for, specific adjustments or anything like that because it was built in from the beginning. So yeah, I just want
Yay!
to mention that.
I may or may not be autistic. I've never gone for diagnosis, but I have my real suspicions. But yeah, I built it for my own brain and for my family. And I like my family members are their brains work so differently from mine. And I was like, how would my daughter, how would my husband, how would I, like, what would I need for this class? And it's such a range. So it's very gratifying to hear that it was inclusive from your perspective. And, we try to use as much sound and visuals and practice and different ways of learning as possible so that everybody, we've had people who are hard of hearing, who've lost their sight, who've had brain injuries, like you name it. People have come through our course, and there's such a tight community bond too. Like we all are rooting for each other to really get it and live it, that it's like it doesn't matter. These things don't matter. You can come with a stutter, you can come with any other thing about yourself, and you will be able to be a whole person because you just are.
That's something I took away as well, is that you can be who you are. And for every coach, there's a client. For every client, there's a coach. And so it's also, this is really important, I think, as a message, because we tend to compare ourselves, especially, I mean, I'm not even going to go there, but social media and all these things, right? So we tend to have this comparison monster in our minds, like, who's the better coach? And am I doing this right? And am I ticking all the boxes? Especially when we've talked, in our past about certain things like, mimicking and people pleasing and all of these different factors at play, perfectionism, etc. So to be in an environment and to realize, like, actually, this is amazing. Like, what I'm going to be able to offer as a coach is going to be completely different to you and someone else and someone else. And they might be crossover. And of course, the actual process that we learn is fundamentally the basics, like the ethics and the powerful questions and the active listening is the same. But the way we're going to do it, the energy we're going to bring, we're just going to have a different client in front of us naturally. And that is incredible to me. And I just love that. And I've loved seeing in the cohort, like how everyone's been on that path of their own. And I'm still on it to, figure out, like, okay, who is my client? Who am I as a coach? Like that new identity. How does that make sense to me? And of course, in the role of coach, that's what I'm talking about right now, but also in the role of friend, in the role of wife, in the role of whatever the other things that I do in my life and the other hats that I wear. How does that kind of shift how I show up? And yeah, I now ask me, hello me.
Hi,
Hi me
me.
sounds, there's multiple, so
Yes.
we know that. Lots of
Yes. All of
schemas.
our
It's
parts
natural.
teaming up.
All of our
Yes.
parts, exactly. So, makes sense. Lapses, that makes sense. Yeah, ask myself, like, what would the coaching you do in this situation? And I find that that helps me to get into wise mind, which is something also from dialectic behavior therapy that we learn, which is like the crossover between, on one side you have your emotional mind and on the other side you have the irrational mind, and the crossover between the two is the wise mind. So your emotional mind will be like, I feel, so I do. I feel angry, so I slam the door. Your rational mind will be like, I think, so I do. I think, I want more money, so I'm gonna apply for better paid jobs. I'm making it up now. And the wise mind is gonna be like, I think and I feel, so then I do. So that's the wisdom there in the middle. And I think that question, like, what would my coach self do in this situation, really helps to tap into that wise mind. There's a real connection there that I think is super powerful.
I think that is the core, like what you just said. That is the core of what coaching is to me. I enter each session in coach state or in self state or in wise mind state or in universal consciousness state. It doesn't matter what you want to call it, but it is deep connection with love. loving intelligence, if you want to get the emotion and the logic really together, that seeing being of love and intelligence, seeing that in the other person, even when there maybe some other part of them is doing most of the talking, and we can kind of gently and humorously notice that, okay, there's their inner toddler showing up to session today, but their wise adult is in there, and I'm going to speak knowing that and recognizing that. And that's what changes people, because it's not changing them, it's just seeing them, seeing the real them. We don't even need to say anything else. Just love people, go out there, you are love, be in love. But back to our topic about mental health.
Yes.
what what would you say, like, if there was a new coach and somebody was going through a significant mental health issue during the coaching, what are some mistakes they might make versus what would be a better way of doing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a mistake would be to blur the lines between coaching and therapy, because maybe we feel like, oh, I need to help the person, right? In coaching, we talk about coaching the person. And so to think, oh, I'm just gonna, push the boundaries, in different directions to match the client. And here there's a risk to the client and to the coach as well, to enter territories where they may or may not have the skills to really help the person. And so when we feel like we are pushing those boundaries, and particularly diving, what I mean by that is particularly diving deep into past trauma, or even very present, like fear of the person harming themselves or others, that's when we want to have that little thought in our minds as a coach that says, okay, is this the time to refer the client to a mental health professional? Um, Another mistake that I would say is important to mention is minimizing or misunderstanding mental health struggles. I have had experiences where when I have shared my diagnosis, people have made certain assumptions or even made recommendations, which coaches are not supposed to do. Hot tip, don't do that. But yeah, no, seriously, like I've had a coach tell me, oh, maybe you should just focus on one thing. It's like, I have ADHD. Uh,
Right.
I
I
don't
think you missed me
like,
there. Yeah.
it's like, that is like literally
Mm.
the opposite of what's going to work. And also, it's not coaching, right? And that's just an anecdotal example, but you can imagine how, invalidating it could be to hear, like, oh, I don't think BPD is a thing. I think it's misdiagnosis of other conditions or forms of neurodivergence. Like you mentioned, autism, some people will have this kind of, belief. And maybe it's true. I'm not an expert. I don't diagnose people. That's not my role. My role is to honor the individual and to honor how they identify and what might be most helpful to them. So it's not to make a judgment as to whether I think that's a valid diagnosis or not, or whatever impression I have of that diagnosis is irrelevant to the conversation. So just to be very careful on that, because well, it's not probably, we definitely all carry biases. That's just the reality about being human. So just to be conscious of those and to watch them and how they play out in sessions. And another thing that came to mind was not to limit the person because of that diagnosis or lived experience. So on the flip side of, like, sometimes the risk is to overextend and go into therapy territory when we don't have the skills. On the flip side, sometimes is to consider, oh, because the person has such and such experience around their mental health or diagnosis or whatever it may be, therefore they cannot do this or they cannot do that, or like putting those limitations. I think that also is something to clearly avoid. And to remember that whatever is the situation, like you said this earlier, like way back, people can benefit from both. I think there is this illusion like, oh, because you have a mental health diagnosis, particularly like BPD, for example, people go like, oh, I can't coach you. Like,
Yeah.
why not? So I can still benefit from coaching and therapy. And also, I might have been through so much therapy. But, I'm in a
Could
place
be.
where mentally, my mental health is stable. And this is up to me, again, the client, to, share and discuss and agree and be clear. And that's why every first coaching session, I had one this week, well, a couple only yesterday, with a new client. I go through, what is coaching? What is the difference between coaching and therapy? What is the difference with mentoring? And I don't just tell them because that's very boring. They probably would be texting or doing something else. Ask them, like, what do you think is coaching? And it's so telling because then sometimes people tell you something that you're like, actually, like, thank you for sharing. And, here is a very helpful reframe of like, with coaching, we look at future goals. We focus on where you want to grow, where you are today and where you want to go. With therapy, you might be exploring the past and revisiting some of these things and how they inform your present life, behavior, etc. So those two approaches, I see them as complementary. And so I think on the one hand, not overextending ourselves into the territory of the past and the therapy. And on the other hand, not limiting ourselves by thinking, oh, can't, can't coach.
I love all of that. I mean, the core of who we are as humans is community. We're all connected. And so why should one coach, it's not like you're bearing the burdens of each client all on your shoulders at all. This client is going to have friends, relationships, this and that. And there is no shame. It is a joy to partner with people for that person's benefit. And so why not invite a community of resources? And if a client does come in a significant, maybe they're going through a burnout or a depression or something, they may or may not be able to set goals in coaching during that time. You're happy to help them find a friend, support them, like, hey, come back as soon as you've got the support you need from whatever you're going through with your past stuff, so that when you are ready to make goals, and maybe they can make goals now and they're talking to their therapist about other stuff. It's beautiful. We're not alone. We're not holding up the whole sky.
If anything, we're helping clients to hold their sky.
Yes.
So,
Their little part,
yeah.
like if we're all those electric power lines, they look like, if you zoom in, it might look like there's one of them, but there's a whole series of them getting electricity from one city to another.
And it also echoes with the fact of like who's holding our sky.
Mm.
So that's really important, I think, like to be also very honest with ourselves. Like, how is our own mental health at this point in time, and what kind of support do we need as a coach, whether that's a mentor, a supervisor, a peer, a therapist, all of them, two of them, lots of friends. All of these relationships, like you say beautifully, serve different purposes and help us in different ways. And so to be like looking at that as well and not forgetting always that analogy, right? Putting the mask on ourselves first, like not forgetting to do that. Because that can help us to see more clearly also what our clients might need if we are completely comfortable with what we need and where we are finding that support for ourselves.
And just as you're talking, this imagery of a journey was coming to my mind. It's almost like on the journey of life, you're moving toward the North Star. If you're going in the right direction because you can see it glowing overhead. And it's not a destination. You're not going to get a graduation certificate. And so even in life, I think some people feel like, okay, I went through coaching. Now I'm perfect. Everything's changed and I'm healthy from here on out. And it's like, guess what? You're going to be a human being for the rest of your life. to your dying breath, and there will be emotions, and there will be thoughts, and there will be beliefs, and there will be all kinds of parts of you popping up. And so, you know, I just think coaches deserve to have coaches and need to have coaches, counselors, all the people on your team. You're part of the community. And that's what I actually really love about being part of Awaken too, is because I have free coaching for life. There's just endless opportunities. I'm starting with a new coach next week. It's just a peer coach. We're both MCCs. We're in an MCC community, and so it'll be kind of a triad where I'll coach someone else coaches me, and we'll have 6 sessions together. I've got a business coach in this season. Sometimes I have a emotion, mind body coach. It just depends on the season, but why would I ever go for a period in my life without someone or several someones in my community and on my support team? It's just the way to live. So sometimes when people come to me for one-on-one coaching, I'm like, for about twice that much, you could learn to be a coach and have free coaching forever from your friends. So like, why not just take the course?
That's such a good point. And I totally agree with you in terms of the human in progress imagery. And we are constantly evolving and we are always going to be human. I used to have that illusion as well, like particularly when I got my diagnosis that, okay, so now I've been diagnosed with this thing, everything is going to make sense. I'm going to get therapy, I'm going to be fixed, and that's it. And nothing is going to be an issue like this ever again. Okay, so nuanced answer to that. Yes, I'm not in the place that I was. Like I'm definitely like way better with, my mental health right now. And there's more. There's always more. And that's the beauty of being alive. Like there's always more to learn and to explore. And, for me, getting that support in place for myself as a coach, it means that I'm constantly walking a little bit on that path further and further towards that North Star. I love that image, is beautiful. And so that I can continue to help more people that might have been me 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago. If I stop, I can just stop anytime. Sometimes also we need to stop for a rest. So I'm not going to
Sure.
say that's a bad thing, by the way. Like it can
Yeah,
happen that
exactly.
sometimes we just need that
Yeah,
breath
you're
of
just like,
like, okay,
I'm
you know
where
what?
I'm where I feel good for now. It
Yes,
feels happy. Things are pretty okay. And I'm gonna
exactly.
chillax, and I'm not, maybe not hire a coach
Exactly.
for a couple years or whatever. Yeah,
Or yeah,
great.
6 months, couple of years, and I'm gonna take a breather and I'm gonna like walk with myself for a bit. Like that's
Yeah.
also valid. I think that both are valid and there are, like you said, different seasons. And so I love the idea of like on my path right now, for example, I'm working with a therapist. She's wonderful, and we're working specifically on the topic of identity. That's a big topic
Mhm.
with BPD. So BPD is a mental health condition that impacts our emotional regulation, distress tolerance, interpersonal relationships, fear of abandonment. There's 9 different criterias, symptoms that if you meet 5, then you receive a BPD diagnosis. And as I've gone through like the therapy journey and the recovery path, a lot of these things have improved dramatically, and some of them like completely disappeared to the point that today if I went and walked into a psychiatrist's office I would not actually meet the criteria. So I'm considered like in functional recovery from BPD is what it's commonly referred to at the moment, as far as I know. Please, if anyone knows better words, I'm open. I think it's still like a very much of a work in progress because for so long it was thought that you can never get better. BPD was one of those where, you look at the literature, it was like you're the desperate cases kind of situation. So that was the whole um, zeitgeist, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Um, so my point was one of the 9 that I still find difficult is that sense of identity. Like, who am I? Is there a me? is there such a thing as an identity because we're all impermanent and interconnected? So, and all of these questions. And is there anything about me that is the same that it was when I was born, or is that all like an evolution? If is there anything that's fundamentally me when I was born? Because a lot of it is intergenerational. Like this whole topic of like, who am I? Like, where is the core of the onion? So many layers. I don't know. And so I've decided, okay, this is the topic that I really want to dive deep into it. And maybe the answer is
Mm.
there isn't anything fundamentally that's never changed. Or maybe it is, free words like core values, or maybe it's something entirely different, an image, a song. I don't know. And I'm piecing all these things
Mm.
together and I'm exploring it through art and writing and therapy. And it's so beautiful. And I just think, why would I not want to do that? Because what? Because my ego feels like, oh yeah, I'm in functional recovery, so I don't need
Ha ha
therapy
ha.
anymore, you know? Like,
Well, it's a little
no.
bit like the journey to sobriety, like a 12-step program or something where, you could be 86 years old. You're still going to be sober. You're still going to be doing your inner work every day and showing up at meetings and being part of the community. And and you can fall off the wagon sometimes, but you're still on the journey of sobriety for life. And I think we all are, we have different language for it, but that really falling into the center of what is me, what is identity as a human. And I'll be very delighted to see what you discover because I know it's going to be beautiful. I know it so much. Oh my goodness. I could talk with you for another 6 hours easily, and it is about time to wrap up. So what other luscious beautifulness would be really lovely to share for now?
It's a very good question. Yeah, I think it's been such a wonderful conversation. I always feel like, my brain is expanding, but also my heart,
Mm,
and my heart also is expanding from these conversations, and feel very grateful and just, yeah, it's like, wow, I get to learn so much through these exchanges of energy, of knowledge, of thoughts and ideas. And I think one of the big takeaways for me in terms of like talking about mental health and this advocacy work and owning and really breaking stigma and breaking taboos and just being like, hey, like this is what's going on with me, this is what is going on with me, um is that connection, that we're not alone. So that's my core message, I think, for anyone listening to
mm,
this. If you feel at a point where you feel I'm alone in this, because I felt this way. Like I literally, when I got my diagnosis around that time, I cut the world out. I was like, all I can do is work and therapy. And I was doing 2.5 hours of therapy a week. Like I was like, this is a life of death or death situation. So that's all I can master right now is work and therapy. That's it. And I felt alone and I felt ashamed. I felt I'm never going to be able to talk about this ever. And it wasn't until another year after that that I started to think, hang on a minute. If I don't talk about it, no one's talking about it. There might be people sitting there like I was, feeling like there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. I'm faulty. And the more we have these conversations, the more I realize, and it's this message being reinforced over and over again. No, you're not broken. You're not faulty. You're human. And yes, there are a lot of struggles that come with that. There is pain, there is suffering. That's part of the life experience of a human. And there's beauty, and there's love, and there's compassion, and there's acceptance. And as soon as we put this light of compassion and acceptance on all the shame and the loneliness, and through that connection, we just shrink it, and it's incredible. So I just feel so honored
mm,
to have done this with you today.
me too. Usually our last question is about spirituality and what kind of world are you wanting to co-create? And it sounds like you just answered it. You want a world where everybody knows they're connected, they're part of it. Nobody's alone. You're not broken, you're human. Ah, we're so
Actually
lovable,
prepared.
Solène.
Thank you.
Mwah. So
This
is
used to be
everyone
my little
listening.
mantra. At one point in
Yeah.
therapy, I didn't feel this way, so I kept telling myself,
Mm.
may you feel loving, loved, and lovable in the morning. And that really helped at that time when, yes, it was difficult for me to think of that word. So thank you. I did actually think about that question, by the way.
Oh,
I have
oh,
an
you
answer.
have more. Go for
And
it.
yes, what you said was part of it. It's
Mm.
like free things about this
Mm.
world that I would love to create and to see and to contribute to and to live in. One is a world without borders. That's fundamental
Mm.
for me. One planet as our home for one people, the whole of humanity. That's fundamental. And I know most people think that sounds idealistic and impossible. Well, guess what? Every amazing idea started this way. So, so that's out there. The second
Mm-hmm.
one is a world in which we celebrate both the differences that make us unique and the differences that make us unique and the similarities that make us human. So it's that dialectic again, celebrating both. I think we often fall into the trap of like, this is me, I'm different, and well, that's why it's amazing, and da da da, and we need to own like value difference. And I agree with that. And let's not forget that we're, what is it, 99.8% the same DNA wise or something like that. It's really, really high. We also share, I think it's 60% of our DNA with bananas. Don't quote me on this, but check it out because it's like, really?
You're
Wow.
not that far from a banana, people. That's our main message today, right? Yes.
No, definitely not our main
Yes.
message. A world without borders, a world in
Uh-huh.
which we celebrate differences and similarities, and a world built on kindness and compassion for
Oh.
ourselves, for each other, all beings, because we're all impermanent and interconnected. So that's my three things that I dream for the world to be and that I hope to contribute as much as possible towards.
Mm. I love that you brought the whole dialectic in here today because it can be a little off-putting, I think, if someone's in a really dark place to hear people talking about how gorgeous and beautiful love is and how amazing it is. And so if it's starting with a place of just barely being able to tolerate yourself or accept yourself just a tiny bit or be with yourself in a really painful situation, I just want to say I personally am feeling very resourced after this conversation from being with you because you brought the whole of you,
Thank you
and
so
it is
much.
gorgeous.
And if it's where you are and you're listening to us, I have been there 100%. And one thing that I learned recently from a member of the BPD Bunch, you mentioned the BPD Bunch briefly before. It's a podcast by and for people diagnosed with BPD. And we're 15 people from all over the world sharing real, like raw life stories and
You are
experiences.
totally co-creating
Yes.
exactly what you want,
Yes.
spiritually speaking.
Thanks to
Yay.
Danny, the host and the founder of this project. She's incredible. And
Mm.
one person on there, Georgette, shared something she calls what if affirmations. So, you know, when you're in that very dark place, like affirmations, I mean, I used to just be like, that is just a whole lot of BS, excuse my French, like that does not work. If I stood in front of the mirror and tried, I'd be like laughing and be like, nah. And that reframe, just the question, what if in front of anything that you feel is not, you're not there,
Mm.
you maybe want to get there, what if I was not broken? What if I was lovable? What if I could get the life that I want in the future? What if I could create a life worth living? It's just
Mm.
so much more accessible, I feel, at the very beginning, and it opens so many possibilities of explorations. Because if we say, what if I could create a life worth living? Then the next immediate question is, well, what would that life be like? What would I do? Who would I be? Who would I hang out with? So I find that really, really helpful. So I just wanted to share that as a final last little tip for those that find it helpful.
Hmm. May you bring all the what if questions into your coaching. It sounds like anyone who works with you as a client is the luckiest person in the world. Thank you for being you.
I'm
So
the
good to be
lucky.
with you now. Oh, we are. We're so lucky. All right. Love
Good.
you, my friend.
Thank you. Love you too.